There are two reasons not to buy this 4K dash cam. Parking mode needs hardwire kit that is sold separately. I'll cover both, plus the 5 reasons I'd still buy this. Reason not to buy this: one, the camera stops recording the second you shut your car off. There's no battery inside it. It runs on a supercapacitor, and the supercapacitor holds power for a blink, not for hours. When the ignition cuts, the screen goes dark and the recording ends right there. Every line on the box about 24-hour parking mode, about time lapse, about voltage protection, all that needs the hardwired kit. The kit is sold separately. Reviewers who tested this camera pointed out the same thing, that parking monitoring and the low voltage cutoff only turn on once you wire it into a fuse box. I learned that the hard way. I told my buddy Randy I had the driveway covered, full 24-hour surveillance, gave him the whole speech. The next morning I walked out, tapped the screen, and got nothing. I've been asleep since I turned the key off. It's been asleep since I turned the key off the night before. So if you're buying this camera to watch your car in a parking lot or catch the guy who dings your door at work, know that you're buying a second piece to make that happen. And if you rent or park in a shared garage, or if you just don't not want to be up under the dash with a fuse tape, this one is not for you. If that does knock you out of this, stay with me. The next stretch is why this thing is stuck to my windshield. Reason to buy this: number one, the camera is small enough to disappear. It measures 91 by 46 by 24.4 millimeters, which is small, which is about the size of a bank card with some thickness to it. The body is flat, matte black plastic, so it does not catch light or throw reflections in your windshield. I tucked mine under behind the rearview mirror. It sits out of sight, lying completely. My wife drove that truck for 2 weeks before she asked me when I was going to install this thing. 2 weeks. She didn't notice it. She noticed a new coffee mug in the cabinet, but she didn't notice this bad boy. A camera you can see is a camera someone wants to steal. And the camera you can see is a camera that keeps looking at you while you drive. This one does neither, and they did not get the controls to get it that small. You get a screen just over 3 inches across and the IPS panel, so you can line up your angle the day you mount this instead of guessing it. Under the screen, there's 3 physical buttons. Real buttons, the kind you can actually find with your thumb at a red light without looking at it. Power goes over the USB-C. A rear camera gets its own USB-C port on the side. Small body, full control, nothing hanging in your view. The one coming up next changed how often I actually pull footage off this thing. Reason number 2 to buy this: it moves 4K video to your phone fast. This one runs a dual band Wi-Fi 6, so it works on a 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, and you can take whichever one is cleaner where you are parked. That sounds like a spec sheet line until you have a clip you need in the next 10 minutes. A 4K file is big. On my old camera, getting 1 minute video onto my phone meant sitting in the driveway long enough to eat a sandwich. With this one, I sat in the grocery store parking lot, opened the app, picked up the clip, and had it on my phone before the ice cream in the backseat went soft. Reviewers who tested said the same thing. That the transfers are quick and the app is easy to live with. The app does more than just pull clips. You can watch live video, grab a still photo, change the recording resolutions, and set how hard the bump has before the camera locks the file in. You can push firmware updates from your phone too, so you're not hunting through a menu on a 3-inch screen. It also sets its own clock. It pulls its time and location from your phone the first time you connect, so you never have to type in a date, which I hate, being an old person. The next one is the one that I would matter most to you if you ever had to prove what actually happened. And after that, I got a second reason you might want to skip this bad boy as well. And it's the one you can check before you order. Reason number 3 to buy: the GPS is built in, and it writes your speed and your exact coordinates right onto the video. Not in a separate file you have to line up later. Onto the picture, burned in frame by frame. Think about what that does for you. In a crash, an argument over never about whether you were there. It's about how fast you were going and who had the light. A stamp that says your speed at the second answers half of that on its own. My neighbor got clipped in a roundabout last fall and spent 6 weeks going back and forth with the adjuster over whose story held up. He had no footage and no numbers. He had a memory and a sore neck. I keep coordinated watermark turned on for the second reason. If something happens on the road that I don't know, I can send the clip that already says where and when it happened down to the spot. Not trying to remember the cross street, no pulling up the map an hour later guessing at all. It's also handy for boring stuff like showing you where a shop is at 8 in the morning like you said. Turn that watermark on the app on day 1 before you need it. Now before I get to the last 2 reasons, here's the second reason you might want to walk away from this. Reason number 2 to not buy this. The rear camera is the weak half of this kit, and it's wired. Start with what it shoots. The front camera does the 4K, rear one records 10,800p at 25 frames through a 130-degree lens. In daylight, that's plenty. After dark, it's a different story. Reviewers who tested this camera call the rear camera in low light one of the two compromises in the whole package. So if the whole reason you're shopping is to read a plate behind you at night or on a dark street, check that expectation right now. Then there's the install. The rear camera is not wireless. You run a cable from your windshield along your headliner down the far side of your car, back to the rear glass. This camera itself is tiny, and the 7MAI gives you plastic pry tool tucked into the wire, and 70MAI gives you a plastic pry tool to tuck the wire in trim. On a lot of cars, that's a 30-minute job. On a car with the side curtain airbags running through the pillars, it's not. And one tester ended up handing it over to a professional. Go pop your trim and look at the airbag label before you order. If you have those pillars and you are not comfortable working around them, budget for a shop. If you're still with me, the last two reasons are the one that keeps this camera on my glass. Reason to buy number 4. It's built to sit in a hot car. That super capacitor I complained about earlier, the one that costs you a parking mode, is the same part that lets this camera survive in July afternoon in the parking lot. 70MAI rates it to run at 14 degrees to up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's why you should care. Most electronics you stick to a windshield run on a small battery, and that lithium battery does not love the heat. They swell. I had a cheap camera in my old truck that puffed up like a dinner roll one summer and pushed its own case apart. I found it in August in a parking lot sitting crooked on the mount. I live in the West and I've watched plastic phone holders sag off my vent in the middle of the day. So a camera with no battery is not a small thing. Nothing to swell, nothing to sit there cooking in the glass. Cold works the same way in reverse. In January morning at 15 degrees is the inside is what this thing's rated for. So I wake up and record instead of blinking at you. If you park outside in a driveway or at a job site in an airport lot for a week, this spec that decides whether your camera still works in a year or 3 years. The last one on the list is why I would buy this camera again, and it's the whole point of owning one. Reason to buy number 5. The front camera is good at night, and the night is when you need it. It shoots 4K at 30 frames when it's running by itself through a 140-degree lens that opens up to f1.55. That wide opening is doing the heavy lifting after dark. And add the HDR and the headlights coming at you stop blowing out in one white smear. Reviewers rate this camera through real tests, and the front footage was excellent, and they made a point of saying that it held up after the sun went down. That matched what I saw as well. I took a rock to my windshield on a freeway at about 10 p.m. at night from a truck 3 cars ahead, kicked up gravel with no flap on the trailer. I went back through the clip the next morning expecting blurry mess. I could actually read that plate. One thing to know so you get this right, when you run both cameras together, the front drops from 30 frames down to 25. If you want the sharpest front footage you can get, you do not need the rear. Run it a single channel and you keep that full 30. The card in the box holds 64 gigabits and that camera squeezes the file down hard. So get a real stretch driving before it loops over the oldest clip. It takes the card up to 512 gigabits if you want more room than that. Skip it if you're buying a camera to watch your parked car and you do not want to touch a fuse box, because out of the box is the one goes dark for a moment, your engine does too. And skip it if the rear view is the whole job. If you need to read plates behind you on a dark street because the little rear camera is a 10,080p daylight tool, why should you buy it? Buy it if you want a sharp front camera that works at night, sitting somewhere nobody notices, in a car that's baked all summer long. Buy it if you want a clip on your phone in 2 minutes instead of 20, with your speed and location already stamped on it. Buy it if you're a guy who has told the same story to an adjuster twice and got nowhere both times, because the plate you can read at 10 at night ends the conversation. Wire it in later if you want the parking side. The front camera alone earns a space on your glass. If you want a plate you can actually read at 10 at night, add this to your cart now, and you can thank me later. As always, remember 2 things here. Number 1, deals fade, so go add that to your cart now. Number 2, the product bro is always here for you.